Thanks for clicking on Wayne.com for another edition of Inside the Zone. While the Komets, because of the circus, are nowhere to be found.
You're saying the Komets are a circus this year?
No, I'm not saying
Glenn.
that they're a circus, but the elephant in the room is the Mitzpah Shrine Circus. And every January, you know, they go on these long, elongated road trips.
Way to think fast on your skates.
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to start off talking about the Komets playing at home, though, even though they are on the road for this 5-game road swing. They have 15 wins at home thus far in the ECHL season. That's tied for second in the league. Considering they've only played 39 games, Tulsa ahead of them, just for a point of reference, has played 45. To be up there in terms of home wins when you haven't really played that many games, what does that say about the Komets? Because we always seem to talk about they got to win their games at home. They got to win their games at home, and they are this season.
Well, I think they made a concerted effort over the summer. They wanted to be a harder team to play against at home. That's why they got Dan Milan. That's why they got Bobby Shea. They wanted to be a grittier team at home, and I think they've done that pretty well.
What goes into that? Because how do you address that specifically, that specific need when you say, okay, we need to be grittier at home? I mean, it doesn't just take getting physical guys. It has to be a whole mentality, I would think.
Well, I think there's no doubt that they know Fort Wayne fans like the more physical style, okay? Now, finding those guys who can do that every night and do it consistently, that's a little harder. Mm-hmm. So you may not get the pros that do that. You may not get the NHL and AHL affiliated guys, because I can't tell you how many times I've heard an AHL affiliate guy talk about, well, I might get hurt and I might miss my chance to go up. So maybe you've got to go get the guys like Mike Embach, who's a little smaller, but he bangs with anybody. I mean, you got to get guys like that. Will Weber, bringing him back was a good one. Usually Gabe Beaupre is really good at that too. And I thought Curtis Leonard's been playing pretty well that way too.
You mentioned Gabe, obviously dealing with concussion issues for quite some time now. But injury-wise, where is Pat Nagel? Because we saw him skating recently. Where is he at? I know high ankle is a tricky injury, but where do you see him filtering his way back into the
Right game? Now he's in Elmira.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So, right here.
And so is Cody Soul. I was told that Cody might have played Sunday. And they played with 5 defensemen. So maybe they're just giving him a couple extra days, but he's on the trip too. So it wouldn't surprise me if both of those guys played tomorrow night in Elmira. It wouldn't shock me at all.
For Pat, what does he bring to the team? Because we've mentioned, Bartis has played very well. PJ's played well as well. So what does he need to do to kind of pick up exactly where they've been and even improve it a little bit? Because it's obviously been a long layoff for him.
That's not been his tendency either. Mm-hmm. I mean, traditionally, Pat is a slow starter, and he knows it and has done different things to try to combat it. And this year, he was off to a great start, his best ever by far. So you're going to have to be patient with Pat, I think. But he's a little bit bigger. He's just got a little bit more talent than the other guys. And Pat is a goalie who can win a game by himself. I'm not sure that's necessarily true of the other guys. They need some help. And Pat will take the help, of course. He's not, he won't turn it down. But if you're having a bad night and you need a goalie to steal game, Pat is that guy.
We talked about it a bit last week because the high ankle can obviously be tricky, and you want to be covered because goaltending is such a crucial element of what any team does. Do you see them carrying 3 goalies on this team, or at least for the next week or two?
Why not? I mean, who's to say that Garrett doesn't get called up again like he did last week, even though that was a different situation? Who's to say Pat doesn't get on a little bit of a roll and he gets called up? Then you're covered at least. And it's a lot easier to find. I think it's a lot easier to find a forward or a defenseman than it is to find a goaltender, especially one you trust and one who's already in the room and well-liked in the room, as both of those guys are, and that doesn't affect the chemistry. And there have been some goalies here over the last 2 or 3 years who really, really affected the chemistry, but you didn't know that when you went out and got them. There's no way to know that, in fact. You're just coming who's available, and it's out of need. You can't really get into the guy's background in the middle of the season. But these guys, you know them, you trust them, you like them. There's respect there from both sides. Why not keep 3?
Talking about returns, Sean Sidlowski. Obviously, he got a chance to play in the ECHL All-Star game. scored the game-winning goal, which was awesome to see if you were watching it on the NHL Network. You kind of waited and waited and waited, and we're like, we need to see some Sadlowski. Boom, he nets what eventually turned out to be the game
Not a
winner.
bad second shot to the game.
Not terrible, not terrible. So what is he going to take from his AHL experience when he gets back down?
Well, it's always interesting, and this is not a knock on Sean at all, okay? Most guys, when they come down, it's an immediate downer. It's always a struggle to get them back up to par. I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the case with Sean, but it wouldn't surprise me if it took him a little bit. I mean, it's human nature. When you miss your chance or your shot at your dream and you get a setback, there's always an adjustment period for any person. And when guys come back from the AHL, they're usually a little bit grumpy. Their heads might be in it, but their hearts, you got to wonder sometimes, and that's completely normal. It just takes them a while to get back into the swing of things, and when you have a really bad experience, it takes anybody time to put something behind you, and when you put that much into it too, and that's what you've been dreaming about since you could start to skate, it takes a while.
How do you see him? Well, what's his immediate impact when he gets back down?
Well, he's always going to have that shot, and he can always, as Colin Chin used to say about Mitch Messier, he can stick handle in a phone booth, and he can do all that stuff. The neat thing about Sean is, and it's like, and other guys too, sometimes when they get called, when they come back, they know they're wanted here, and they know they are appreciated here, and they know that people feel for them here, that they've got to come back down and stuff. And a nice thing for those guys too is his folks can come back to the games again, and there's all kinds of little things. You got to kind of focus on that. For
him, when do you foresee him?
I have no idea.
Putting on a Komets sweater.
No idea.
Obviously, it's difficult to tell.
There's no way to tell, because look at Trevor Cheek in Tucson. They've gotten 4 or 5 guys back from injuries, and he's not here. You just never know. It depends on what they want. Some of those AHL teams have 16, 17 forwards. They play 12 every night. There's no way to count on it. And it's like politically, anything I say is pure guesswork, okay? And don't take it as fact. It's not right. You can't say.
Very apropos based on last week.
You can give them educated guesses from past history, but even that doesn't matter much this way.
Well, past history indicates present success, is what they say. So I want to talk about the power play because it has been successful this season. You're talking about they have the 4th best power play in the league, 2nd best power play at 22.9%. On the road, difficult to do. It's actually better on the road than it is at home.
That's because they don't have everybody yelling, shoot!
Oh, come on, that doesn't affect anyone.
No.
But
I always remember when Guy got his jersey retired, and he was talking about how he was now yet one of those guys sitting in the stands yelling shoot.
Well, Chalk's family, I'm sure, also wanted him to shoot more. So it's just like human nature. You want to see your guys score. But when it comes to this power play, what has impressed you? Before the show, you were saying it's tailed off a little bit recently. Yeah. But what have they been able?
The penalty kill's been tailing off.
Penalty kill, yeah. Special teams in general. But the power play, what has really worked for them so far this season?
Three things that have really stood out to me. Mike Cazzola on the wing has really been good at feeding other guys. Garrett Thompson in front has been creating a lot of traffic. He's been better in front of them on the power play. And lately, I'll give you 4 things. And lately, Mason Baptista. I mean, all his goals have been the ugliest, dirtiest, greasiest, knock them in off your head goals, but they count. And he's been doing great at that. And he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not the toughest guy in the world, but he's pretty darn smart with that, getting right near the puck and just throwing himself in there. It's a lot of time being in the right place at the right time, and he's really good at that. The other thing is, I think Jason Binkley has really, really continued to improve and really helped himself and really helped the Komets with his abilities.
Those were 2 names I had written down, Mason Baptista, Jason Binkley. So when it comes to Baptista, you mentioned the greasy goals. That is a phrase that we've heard time and time again from Gary Graham. How critical is that?
We used to call them garbage goals 20 years ago.
But they're not garbage.
Phil Esposito. I mean, he would always Everybody else would do all the work, and he'd just tap in the rebound. Gabby Boudreau, same thing. Everybody else would do all the hard work, and he'd just tap it in and take all the glory. That kind of thing.
There was a postseason where Brad McMillan did something very similar to that.
Big time. Playing with a broken arm.
And that was critical, that postseason.
It was amazing because he was filling in for PC, who was out with, I think, a knee injury.
That was PC's almost 100-point year?
Yeah, 99.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're getting old.
I know. Mike Cazzola, that's the last thing I want to touch on this week. What has he been able to do that's allowed him to really hit the ground running? Because you're talking about a guy with 30 assists, that's best among ECHL rookies. His 46 points, best among ECHL rookies. If your name isn't Spinks over in Toledo, then you're not even in the consideration for Rookie of the Year.
People around the league are going to think I'm nuts for saying this. If Kazzy has a chance to be the next Chad Costello, a little bit. You think about how much he has improved this season, and if he can still keep improving that much, if he can improve as much as Kyle Thomas, if he could keep that kind of a pace, he could really be something. And he's already really, really good. He showed last week he did it even without Sidlowski in town. They flipped up the lines, and he still had a 3-point game. It's confidence. It's so much confidence. Look at Cody Soul this year, how much better he's been at carrying the puck and just being a dominating force. It's confidence. And Gary's put him out there in those situations and let him grow, and he hasn't yanked him. He's let him build his confidence. And that is something that it's very, very hard to do when he's 26, but it's his first year as a pro, and each time you have to adjust.
Final thing I want to touch on at Elmira.
You said that before.
I know. But I want to talk about the games this week because we talked about all these topics. We should actually get to the games at some point. Wednesday at Elmira, Friday at Elmira, Saturday at Reading. What do you foresee as the biggest key this week? Because 3 games in 4 days, a couple of Elmira games, and Reading is not an easy place to go play.
Glenn, you're going to get me in so much trouble.
What do you foresee as the biggest keys?
Well, it's the same thing we talked about last week. And obviously they didn't hear it last week. You got to stay out of the box, guys. Man, it's just so hard when you keep taking these penalties. You give up 2 power play goals each Saturday and Sunday in the third period. You're going to lose. That's all there is to it. It's not rocket science. It's just, when are these guys going to get it, or are they going to get it? And if they're not going to get it, do you have to make a trade to shake things up in the locker room? I don't want that to happen. I don't think anybody wants that to happen. Mm-hmm. But if they're going to fulfill their dreams of maybe going for a championship, they're not going to do it this way. We know that. They proved that last year. It's not going to work. Do you have to try something like that to shake it up? I don't know, but you're running out of options.
Well, it should be very interesting going forward as the Komets' quest for another cup continues this season. Alongside Blake, I'm Glenn. We'll see you back here next Monday.
We're going to the circus right now.
I have tickets for Sunday Circus, so I will be there Sunday. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.